always like New Year's. We don't have any changes to the agenda, right?
I wanna see Hope's face when she opens that.
I didn't forward it to her yet.
Oh, you did?
No, but I'll do it during the presentation.
We tell all the teachers, like, if you need any resources, this is how you request them from.
I got an email from Hope's Outdoor Adventures. I think Eric's in it too, class. It's like, we would like you to donate everything in your garage to this class. I just like skis, camping equipment.
It's like, if you need
It's pretty
supplies,
extensive.
please tell us.
Like, well, where are they going?
Yeah.
North Pole.
I know, this is stuff that drives me nuts, and like a lot of people.
I got it and I was like, oh, Jeff's not gonna love this.
Well, it's like we had a North Point teacher last year told her parents that she needed books, cause she didn't have any books.
Yeah.
It's like, you have a whole shelf of old.
Okay. On that note.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Those in the audience could join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with agenda approval. I don't know of any changes to the agenda. Anybody else have any changes? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Forsberg, second by Mrs. Strobel. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to some future events, please check the district calendar and resource guide or the district website for a complete list of monthly events. Tuesday, September 24th, school board work session, 6 p.m. Tuesday, October 8th, school board regular meeting at 7 p.m. with 6:45 communication to the school board and administration. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Easter,
Second.
second by Ms. Forsberg. To approve the following items of the consent agenda: minutes of the August 13th and 27th school board regular meeting and work session. Bills paid for July 2019 totaling $3,569,184, and personnel items attached to the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Presentation, special guests, and recognition. This is exciting. We have a presentation for Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. Ms. Schultz.
Good evening, school board. As we've done the past few years, we're letting the school board know that for the audit of 2018, so June 30th, 2018, we did once again receive the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from our ASBO International Group. And this year, Chris has been in back working on this year's audit, so I asked him to come and be a part of this, because I tell the board this every year. But tonight, I think most of you have met Chris already, but I wanted him to come. He is really the one that does almost all of the work for the audit. That coordinates with all the other departments and gets everything together, does most of the financial work related to it as well. So I wanted to make sure that Chris was here as well, because
Excellent.
this award really is due to the work that he puts in for that. The award is something that less than 10% of Minnesota districts do apply for and receive. It is something that all school districts have to submit an annual financial statement. The Certificate of Excellence goes for those districts who go above and beyond in preparing additional statements that are submitted that just provide a lot more information. So once again, we wanted to make sure the board is aware that we did receive it for last year's audit, and we are currently working on the June 30, 2019 audit, and we'll once again apply for it. And we should find out next spring. So with that, I'm giving this to Chris this year. So.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, and
Thank you.
what a huge honor for the district. Thank you for all of your work, Chris. Thank you, Amy, your staff. I know you guys put so much work into this and work on it all year to keep everything working well so the audit goes well as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You get to meet Oz from behind the curtain.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is for the rest of the board.
They're like cockroaches. We might be in it. Oh, really? Really
All right, that's wonderful. Okay, moving on to discussions, reports, information items. Engaged and enthusiastic learners align the work of adults to continuously improve personalized instruction and responsiveness to meet our students' unique and varied needs. All right, we have an update on the 2019-2020 district operational plan. Dr. Ronneberg and Dr. Round.
You do, so I'm gonna kick this off, and Hope's going to then give you all the meaty details. So you had an opportunity at our work session at the end of August to go through this in detail, and Hope's gonna provide an overview of this tonight. So our community can hear about the great work that's happening in the district to improve results. So as you're well aware, we have a strategic plan that's really the roadmap for the future that we follow. This is the board, the governance document, that provides the overall direction for the work that we do day to day. In order to bring that to life, we have a district operational plan, as you're well aware. And it's really a focus on continuous improvement, as well as we have that district initiative for create innovative and personalized learning throughout the district. It's an ongoing annual plan that utilizes an adaptive planning process. We review this regularly at a quarterly basis. In addition, spend significant amount of time with you as a school board at 2 retreats during the year, really digging into the progress on this and making refinements as appropriate. So what you see in the image in the lower right of the screen there are strategic anchors. We have 3 strategic anchors that we know we need to be successful with on a day-to-day basis, on an annual basis. One is really making sure we have excellent teaching and learning in place, that we utilize our resources, human, fiscal, time resources effectively, and then that we engage with our parents and community well. And at the center of all of that, ultimately, we want to raise our highest levels of learning and narrow that achievement gap. In August, we provided an overview of, as I already mentioned, our district operational plan, but at our August meeting, we really Hope spent some time walking through what we're doing with innovative and personalized learning, as well as just an overview of each of the projects. And this evening, we're going to provide a brief overview of what we're doing with our district operational plan. At this point, I'll hand it over to Hope.
Great, thank you. So just as we get started, I'm going to put our continuous improvement and innovation alignment framework in front of you. And this is just to remind us all that we're purposeful in aligning our work from district to school, to professional learning community, to individual teacher, and you will see this in action tonight as we go through the presentation. When we think about and look at our long-term desired results, our annual goals, our projects, and then the professional learning that we're doing throughout our system. Also, before we get started with the review of our results, I just want to remind us all that in Spring Lake Park, we use multiple sources of student data to inform our next actions, from the district level down to the individual teacher level. So we aren't just using one data point at one point in time to make decisions. As you see on the screen, those multiple sources include our standardized tests, which is our focus for this evening. But it's also important to know that we regularly examine student progress using our district benchmark assessments, our summative assessments, such as unit tests or projects, and then our formative assessments, those day-to-day, in-the-moment assessments that drive our very next actions or assessments for learning. The lower we go on this list in balanced assessment, the higher the impact on student learning. So while tonight we're focused on our standardized test data, it's important for our board as well as the community to know that we're working day to day and actually literally moment to moment with our learners on the methods of assessment that have the highest impact on student learning. Also, as we move into reviewing our standardized test results, I wanted to be sure our families and community knew that at our last board work session, we spent quite a bit of time digging into our data results, answering some questions, and just as importantly, our learning and equity team retreat that happened for 3 days in August also had our teams digging into the data, both standardized test and otherwise, and they'll continue to look at that summatively and formatively at their weekly professional learning communities. So again, tonight is a synthesis of the insights that we were able to talk through as well as our school teams. All right, on the heading of this slide, you'll see that header that says increase student success in reading and math. And that is our first overarching long-term district desired result. is to increase student success in reading and math for all students, reducing disparities in learning between student groups. And so we'll start by looking at district-wide grade level proficiency and cohort growth. And just to be specific, when we look by grade level, what we mean there are we look at third graders in 2015-16 to third graders in 2016-17 to third graders in 17-18. So we're looking at different groups of students each year. When we plot that over time using linear regression, our trend indicates that our reading achievement by grade level proficiency remains relatively flat at all grade levels. And just to point out, we may see slight ups or slight downs from year to year, but those increases and decreases often fall within the standard error of measurement for a standardized test. So we want to make sure that we don't either direction, either over-celebrate a small up or get overly worked up about a small decrease. What we want to do is look at that trend over time. When we follow students by cohort, starting with their initial MCA in grade 3, so here now we're talking about third graders in 15-16, who then are fourth graders in 16-17, fifth graders in 17-18, so on and so on. We see an increase in the percentage of students who meet grade level standards on our reading MCA. In other words, each grade level cohort has increased the percent of students who meet proficiency from year to year. We're taking an aggressive and high intensity approach to professional learning and implementation around the science of teaching reading this year, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. In the area of math, when we look by grade level and by cohort, our results are trending down, again, using linear regression. Our math results aren't where we want them to be. We do know that last year was our first year of implementation of our K-12 math framework, highlighting key instructional practices, as well as our first year of implementation for a new core resource for K-5 math, Bridges, which we updated you on multiple times last year. It's not typical to see immediate impact of this learning and work on our standardized test results. We do know that qualitatively speaking, we have heard from our teachers that our kids are frequently explaining their reasoning in math using multiple mathematical representations to solve problems, and they are engaging in meaningful mathematical discourse to make connections to their learning. So we look forward to moving into year 2 on our math learning and work. Again, I will provide an update for you in just a little bit on that. Another way we look at our external standardized test results is by looking at individual student growth goals. And specifically, we use the MAP assessment, our measures of academic progress, and we look at spring to spring growth as well as local data. You'll see at that first bullet, our individual student growth goals. The first strand of that, we look at students who have met college-ready benchmarks that they will maintain or enhance their proficiency. And so their individual growth goal seeks to either maintain or enhance, and so we still expect growth, even when kids are walking in, meeting those college-ready benchmarks. When we look at that data at the middle school level, we're trending up at the percent of kids who maintain or enhance for both reading and math. At the elementary level, we're trending up for reading and down for math. The second half of our student growth goals states that students who have not yet met college-ready benchmarks will make aggressive growth to or toward benchmarks. Here, our results show at the middle level, we're trending down for both reading and math, and elementary level, we remain flat for reading and trending down for math. What this lets us know is kids who are already at benchmarks and are doing well continue to do well. That's what we see in our system. For kids who have not yet met, we are relentlessly working towards shifting that trend. And you'll hear more about the work we're doing explicitly with our academic specialists and concepts teachers to aggressively pursue aggressive growth for our kids. Another way we look at our standardized test data is by looking at student groups. You'll note there, you'll see the insight that our largest gaps between student groups are between students identified as English learners and those who are not, and between students eligible to receive free or reduced price lunch and those who are not. After that, you'll note that we also report on kindergarten readiness. Each year, our early childhood learning and equity team set goals, establish projects, collects formative and summative data. For our youngest learners, they do this through observational tools and protocols that have been validated to work toward that goal of all students ready for kindergarten. The great news there is we have a high percentage of our students, the vast majority of our students who attend Spring Lake Park Preschool programming are meeting the developmentally appropriate benchmarks for language and literacy, as well as emotional and behavioral self-regulation, both of which are key indicators as ready for kindergarten. All right, this brings us to our second overarching goal, that all students leave career and college ready so that they see no limits to their future. For this goal, we go beyond grade level benchmarks and we focus on college ready benchmarks, which are much more rigorous. We give our 8th graders through our juniors an assessment each spring from the ACT suite, either the Aspire or the ACT itself. Students are assessed in English, math, reading, science, and writing. Again, you'll see over time, our linear regression trend line for ACT and Aspire remains relatively flat. I do want to point out that in past years, we've been able to do some comparison with our ACT results to neighboring districts. When we were all mandated to provide the ACT for all juniors on site during the school day. And since then, since that requirement has been shifted, we have chosen to continue to administer the ACT for all of our juniors on site during the school day. And some of the other districts have not, so it's a little bit tougher to make comparisons there. When we apply our college-ready benchmarks to our MAP assessment, our results are very similar to the grade level benchmarks that I shared just a few moments ago. Those are listed there. And then next, we look at graduation rate. We had a slight improvement in our graduation rate from last year to this year. Again, when we disaggregate that data and look individually, literally student by student, what we see are students who are most likely not to graduate in their 4-year cohort are students who are eligible for free or reduced price lunch, students who frequently transfer schools, and or students who have been purposefully identified for continuing their high school education as part of their personal learner map. Some examples of that are students who stay in our system through our transitions program for students ages 18 to 21, and some of our newcomers to the United States. With our graduation rate, we are continuing a focus on meeting the needs of each of our students through our counselors for personalized learning, our social workers and community resource liaisons, and through our work in innovative and personalized learning. And then our 12 by 12 initiative, 12 college credits by 12th grade, we continue to see increased enrollment in advanced placement, college in the schools courses, articulated courses, and pathways courses. I do want to note that the connection we make with our AVID programming has really contributed to that increased enrollment. That's been great to see. And we've kept you updated over the last year to 2 years, but our enrollment in our pathways courses, which often, many of which have that college credit option attached to it, either through college in the schools AP or articulated courses, that enrollment has just exploded. And so we will continue to monitor participation in student learning within the courses and how gaining that college credit impacts future college enrollment, matriculation, and then ultimately persistence through college graduation.
Can you just remind anybody who might be watching what an articulated course is?
Sure, articulated courses are offered through community technical colleges, and so we partner with them to offer the curriculum that would meet the requirements for them to obtain credits from each of those institutions, and then following the course, should kids want to pursue gaining an articulated credit, they can work with that community or technical college to gain that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so each year we set both long-term and annual desired results for student learning and achievement following our continuous improvement and alignment model. You've seen it already. Now we have great red circles to walk you through that as we go through each box there. So we start with our district desired results, You've already heard our overarching district goals, so we won't repeat those. Now we're gonna move down to school level. Those, our school goals are aligned to our district desired results. You'll see again, those annual leverage goals of 100% of students who have met college-ready benchmarks will maintain or enhance their proficiency. 100% of students who have not yet met college-ready benchmarks will make aggressive growth to or toward benchmarks. And ultimately, we want to see a positive trend line on each of those over time. We move down to the professional learning community level. So our professional learning communities review their student learning data and set goals in alignment with the school desired results so that each professional learning community is contributing to the achievement of the school goal. Once they have those annual goals, they determine the leading indicators on the slide you'll see called small outcomes and leveraged behaviors that they will measure along the way to make sure that they are on track for meeting those professional learning community goals. And that brings us to individual teacher goals. Individual teacher goals, which are set in 3 areas, are set in alignment with PLC and school goals. Student achievement and student engagement goals are aligned to PLC and leverage goals, and professional practice goals are aligned with school improvement and innovation plan projects. And the vast majority of those professional practice goals will be focused on reading and math for the coming year. All right. So as you know, we've developed our district operational plan that we highlighted in full at last month's meeting. Tonight, I'm going to speak just in a few more specifics around 2 projects that influence and impact our student learning and achievement results. So the first of those projects is Enhanced School Improvement and Innovation Plans. I'm just gonna start with a little bit of a why. So rather than see school improvement and innovation as an either or, which many people view, we really see it as a both and. There's a component of both improving standard work and capitalizing on the creativity of our teachers, staff, and students. And in Spring Lake Park, we talk a lot about effective school improvement and innovation planning, and that requires really partnership leadership between the district and the school. The district provides professional learning and support for those school improvement plan projects that generally are standard across all of our schools this year. We're looking at literacy, math, and implementation for accelerating the learning of English learners at each school. At the same time, each school provides ongoing high-intensity coaching for implementation unique to their site, and they do that based on an analysis of student learning needs, as well as professional practice goals of teachers. So as we get going into it, within this project, the next few slides will talk about how we are supporting schools with implementation of all of these: pre-K-12 literacy, pre-K-12 math, accelerating learning for students identified as English learners, and then through enhancement of teacher induction and then working with schools on their specific projects. So within the School Improvement and Innovation Plan project, we have some next actions to improve student learning and reading. Year-long design of professional learning and coaching for implementation of the science of teaching reading. I kind of gave you a spoiler alert before on that for all K-6 teachers of reading. Just to recap what's been done thus far, in our second week of school with students, however, we started at the beginning of August with all K-6 principals, coaches, and language arts leads in for learning dedicated to their role around both helping teachers with the acquisition of knowledge and the high-intensity coaching follow-up that needs to be done to see this come to high levels of implementation. On Thursday of workshop week, all of our K-2 teachers spent a day diving into phonemic awareness and phonics. All grade 3-6 teachers spent their day on comprehension. We're also increasing the frequency and intensity of professional learning and coaching for implementation for our elementary academic specialists and secondary concepts teachers. On just this past week, actually last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we had all of our K-6 academic specialists working on the application of diagnostic assessments, creating skill-based groups based on that information, designing targeted instruction specific to student needs, and making explicit plans for progress monitoring and tracking that week to week. We also are providing learning opportunities for all secondary teachers to build literacy no matter what content area you teach. So for example, while that was happening Thursday of workshop week for our elementary teachers of reading on phonics, phonemic awareness, and comprehension, at Westwood, the grade 7-8 teachers were working on high leverage instructional strategies specific to substantive conversation that will build literacy through the specific content area they teach, whether that's science, social studies, world language. You'll see in all of these that there is a bullet that includes assessment for learning strategies and those high leverage instructional strategies. You will see this on each of the slides, and that is intentional. Last year, all schools worked on assessment for learning practices, the 7 strategies in their school improvement plans, and this year, they are applying that learning in each of these areas of standard work. So it won't be seen as a separate project, but it is embedded into each. So we're not just looking at it in isolation, in silo, but now let's see those strategies come to life in each of these areas. All right, next actions. To improve student learning in math, again, we're on year 2 of professional learning on implementation of our key instructional practices. Within our math framework, specifically, our focus this year is on implementing rich tasks. What are rich tasks in math, you may ask? I have an answer for you. Rich tasks are those tasks where a predictable path to a solution is not explicit. So it requires students to go beyond a formula or an algorithm to solve a problem. And it requires them to explore and access mathematical concepts, processes, and relationships, okay? So we want to go beyond the procedure and ensure that each of our students have a deep conceptual understanding and can use math fluidly and flexibly. The farther along we get in math, the more we're required to do that to be successful.
Story problems.
Yeah.
That's what I kept thinking, story.
Yeah, and ramped up quite a bit, actually, so yes. We also are continuing our professional learning on the core resources to support student learning. Again, we're in the 2nd week of school, but any teachers new to teaching secondary math have already attended training on CPM, which is our core resource. Any elementary teachers new to teaching elementary math have already attended training on Bridges. Any academic specialists new to that position have already attended Bridges intervention training, and all teachers of math have already engaged in a book study around our key mathematical instructional practices. Again, I mentioned the learning for our academic specialists and concepts teachers that has already started, and finally embedding assessment for learning and high leverage instructional strategies. Next actions to accelerate the learning of students identified as English learners. We are again in year 2 of implementation of our English learner framework. Our lead EL specialist in our district has already worked with both our new and returning EL teachers, one-to-one and small groups. Our EL teachers have already been in touch with all incoming kindergarten families to learn from them about their child's unique language background. And we will continue monitoring the implementation of our continuum of services. I noted some here. We have grade level sheltered content courses at the high school taught by dually licensed teachers. So they're licensed both as English language, English learner specialists and within a content area such as social studies or English language arts. What that does when we shelter that grade level instruction, it really works to make the language of the content accessible and comprehensible to our kids who are learning English as a second language. And at the same time, they're engaging them in cognitively challenging learning experiences. So they're not reducing demands to make the language accessible. It's a both and there. We also provide direct English language development support and/or courses tailored to varying levels of English proficiency. Some of those dedicated specifically to newcomers, and some English language development direct services to what we would call students who have been receiving English learner services long-term. And an example of that is we have our high school English language specialists working on the language of math and the language of science with our English learners. Again, part of our framework is conducting personalized meetings with students, families, EL specialists, and counselors for personalized learning. And our English learner specialists also use embedded assessment for learning strategies and high leverage instructional strategies. All right, in addition to those common projects within school improvement and innovation plans, district and school leadership, we're also partnering to support professional learning and improved implementation of standard work. Through our teacher learning and evaluation process, both, I just want to point out, in our day-to-day coaching, and also we provide really robust offerings for learning with a focus on implementation through our SLP Academy, which is our professional learning academy specifically designated for teachers. Also, we have ramped up our 3-year process for new teacher induction because we really need to ensure that all new teachers receive professional learning and coaching for identified areas of standard work. And I've given you examples over the last 10 minutes on the learning that's already happened between August and the second week of school. Just pointing out that new teachers have had the opportunity to engage in up to 8 days of professional learning around reading, math, school and classroom management, as well as our SLP vision and values. Finally, under this project, schools, of course, will also design and implement high-quality professional learning in alignment with school-specific projects while supporting individual teacher needs to meet any student learning needs. The second project and final project I'll highlight for tonight are the projects that fall within our innovative and personalized learning initiative. Again, the why, in this innovative and personalized learning work, we spent the last 2 years primarily in that discovery and design space, and we're moving into delivery as we continue to create the conditions to engage students in more flexible and interdisciplinary learning opportunities. You'll see the specific strands of our innovative and personalized learning project listed there: competency-based learning, learner profiles, personal learner maps, flexible learning environments, and through systemic innovation by design. All, of course, with the end goal of creating pathways for our learners to become powerful, self-directed, I like adding curious and joy-filled learners. And this just lists kind of our broad overarching key achievement points under our innovative and personalized learning work. We're beginning work with an innovation cohort specific to our competency-based learning framework. We have a group of about 20 to 25 teachers and coaches that will start that intensive learning and application of developing our academic competencies, redesigning performance assessments, and looking at the student work and learning that will get kids to deep levels of learning focused on their authentic application of the competencies. We continue to monitor, support, and enhance implementation of learner profiles, which are used to inform student work and learning experiences. Again, something that we explicitly made connections with and gave our academic specialists some time to get into and practice in their work with us last week. To fully implement Naviance at grades, that should be 7-12, which really is our system for looking at our 4+ year learner maps and our annual personal learner maps for students, and with that, establishing short-term learner maps for all K-12 students with identified needs, specifically identifying a primary advocate for each learner. Not to be repetitive, but when our academic specialists were in last week, we had them take student real-time student data. They went through the diagnostic, they looked at the targeted, they grouped kids, looked at the targeted intervention, progress monitoring, and all of that culminated in the development of a personal learner map for kids that will be housed in a location for kids and parents and teachers to look and follow progress. Also part of this is to conduct conceptual studies of any possible school structures that have been brought forward by different teams from different schools to determine if we want to move forward to possible design, kind of those ideas that we call let's build it in our system. Along with that, I just wanted to note, we've talked that we have put had both Jennifer Blado, one of our counselors for personalized learning, and Janelle Todd, one of our teacher leaders in our system. For a portion of their day, they're on special assignment this year to work throughout our system, grades 7-12, on learner profiles and maps with both our counselors for personalized learning at both schools and through advisory. So they've gotten a good start on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you define what a primary advocate is?
Sure. Yeah, so we just, what we're looking at with that short-term learner map is for each of the targeted areas, who is the primary advocate for not only that skill, but then in making the connection with the families around that. So for if on their short-term personal learner map at the elementary level, if it's reading, that primary advocate would likely be their academic specialist that's working with them for 30 to 60 minutes in a small group day to day. They wouldn't do that in isolation from their classroom teacher, but really getting really diagnostic specific information about their progress, where they are, where they're going, and where to next.
Like you say, based on specific needs?
Yes, based on specific need.
Thank you.
All right. I think that brings us to the end. Just reinforcing that the work we're doing in our district operational plan meets the 5 categories, 5 goals of the Minnesota Department of Education's World's Best Workforce Plan requirements. And just to note that our district operational plan in full, including the key achievement points, not just for these projects, but for all projects, can be found online. That also includes a description of many ways for community members and parents to be involved throughout the district. With that, I'll turn it back over.
You good?
Oh, nailed it.
Yeah, thank you very much. As always, it's astounding how much work goes into all of it. I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
I have one other question.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned in the enhancement school improvement and innovations plans piece for literacy and math, you're increasing the frequency and intensity of professional learning. How does that fit within the current, day, or, how are you being able to squeeze that in, that increased frequency? and
Sure.
intensity?
So we look at professional learning from a continuum. So while I think the majority of people just think, oh, professional learning happens when students aren't here on those we call non-student contact days, of which we have a number throughout the year. We also, professional learning happens every week in professional learning communities. So that's another opportunity in their weekly PLC. We also use extended PLCs from time to time. Like PLCs usually have 45, 50 minutes, and we might have rotating subs that allows each professional learning community an extra hour or hour and a half to do the learning. We also engage in professional learning through instructional rounds, getting into other people's classrooms.
I think one real tangible example is we did this a number of years ago, and then sometimes things happen, and it was really successful, and it kind of went away, and we want to bring that back, and that's videotaping of
Yes, thank you.
teacher instruction. So for example, one is having exemplars, so those teachers that are really doing an excellent job, people have the ability to see that, because they're with kids throughout the day, they don't have an opportunity to get in the classrooms very much. The other one is videotaping of teachers, so then they can sit down with their coach and actually see themselves in action and get feedback on that. So that was something that we started some last spring. There was some work done last spring again, and looking at rolling that out more broadly. That was something that they talked about during workshop week at for example, elementary reading,
Yes.
professional learning.
So you're just sort of adding another tool to be able to more efficiently provide feedback.
Yep, that lends itself to that high-intensity coaching as well.
Okay.
Yes. Good question. Anybody else have questions?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Professional learning days, you said that new teachers had 8 days already?
Up to, yeah,
to 8,
yep,
oh, okay.
yep. So we have 2 days prior to the week before workshop week where everyone comes back that all of our new teachers go to this summer. We just sketched out additional 1 to 2 day learning opportunities and just reached out to our new teachers with an invitation saying, we'd love to have you come to this, and a really good number of them came
Oh, okay.
to that, yeah. And those who weren't able to come for whatever reason, we have or will recoup that learning for those teachers.
So it is an increase to previous years for new teachers?
Yes, definitely, yeah, not required, not all 8 days required, all in a row, but providing those opportunities throughout the summer once teachers have been hired. And our experience this year is when we've done that and made that intentional, purposeful reaching out and talking about the why of that, everyone's like, yeah, this is great. And we've actually had really great feedback from our new teachers on providing that for them.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you
I
to
think-
the audience for keeping the lights on for her. That's really helpful.
Amy, I just do want to add that Amy, the principal, Amy, Hope, the principals, all of Hope's staff, the coordinators have just done amazing work last spring throughout the summer to be able to be implementing this the way it is. I can tell you that Hope, when she talks about relentlessly and aggressively pursuing, wanting to see better results, she truly does that on a day-to-day basis. And we really do believe that we can provide that both of having deeply engaging learning where kids are having fun and are truly engaged, and we see those results continue to improve, and that's what we're gonna work for every day. But I just wanted to thank Hope and her direct team, as well as the principals and the coaches in each building, and all the teachers who've been involved with planning throughout the summer, because it takes a lot of people to make that happen, so thanks to everyone involved.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, superintendent's report.
All right,
You're up.
so I have a few things that I wanna update you on. So one, I will pull up on my screen. It's giving me a computer rebooting because it died on me while Hope was presenting, so,
It's not your fault. It's okay.
it's not her fault, so I will, get that back up. But, so a couple things. First off, just walking through these slides of recent student staff accomplishments. Many of you were, I think most of you were at this. We had our annual staff kickoff event. It was pretty amazing to me to look around that room and that it's absolutely packed. And when I started in the district many moons ago, it was, that lower level was not even full. So it's pretty amazing to see all the people there and the excitement in the room. Every year is one of my favorite days. Kudos to Colleen Peterson for the great work that she does in making that all go off without a hitch. So, and then also Karen Stifter, my assistant, Colleen McMurtry, I know helped her a lot with getting all the behind the things work. So it was a great success, and the highlight is always, I think, the kids who are there and sharing their talents. So that was a lot of fun. And we had a huge group of staff this year who had received their pins for 20 and 30 years of service. So that was a lot of fun. Kind of our two common groups we seem to hear from, and part of that is because they're really good at sharing their good news, and one is FCCLA. You can see that they earned gold ratings at the national conference competition held in Anaheim this summer. So a number of the students who you've had a chance to hear from in the past, Cassidy Ananda Patel, and I always struggle with her first name, Supriya Patel, but each were honored for the work that they did. So it was a lot of fun to see that. And then we had two OEC students earn first place in international competitions. So Hannah and Sophia Anderson both placed first out of 87 teams. So a lot of fun to see that. That's held in Orlando, Florida. So again, two highly successful programs that we have over at the high school. And then I just wanted to share some pictures. Thank you to the communications team for pulling some of this together. But this is Centerview Elementary. You can see some of the kids that we've had a great first week plus here of school. It's fun to see football team and some of our other football players and some of our other athletes from the high school were at some of our elementary schools helping greet students, our youngest students, as they came into school. Also, we're at Park Terrace and I know at Westwood, a number of different places we had our Panther. They're greeting kids as well. I think parents liked getting their pictures taken with them as much as the students did. Woodcrest Spanish Immersion. I like that picture right in the lower in the middle.
Yeah.
He's got some good
Checking it out.
He's ready for the start of school. Westwood. So, had a great start over at
They're
Westwood.
smiling.
Lighthouse. They like their new
Is that
playground.
the new playground?
Yes. They like their new
Awesome.
playground. So, like that, and then Spring Lake Park High School. The freshmen on their first day, you can see. So, that's the pictures. In addition to that, a couple other things I just wanted to update you on. One is we have our Panther Carnival coming up on September 28th at the high school stadium. It's fun for kids and families. There'll be more information. There is more information online for people, but I really encourage people to attend. The Panther Foundation does a great job with that. We're really appreciative of the work they do with that. I also just wanted to update the board. Our North Suburban Post-Secondary Consortium, we met, the superintendents from the 5 districts met last week, and as you know, our consortium includes Fridley, Mounds View, Roseville, Columbia Heights, and then, of course, Spring Lake Park. And we met last week just to review the projects that we'd identified for our consortium operational plan last spring, and to commit to, and each superintendent district had gone back to see which of the projects they were going to be a part of. Because as we set up this consortium, we said the 2 districts are that this is the only consortium that we're a part of. It meets the achievement and integration requirements for the state, are Mounds View and ourselves. The other 3 are also members of other achievement and integration consortiums. So districts choose which projects they may or may not be part of. So the projects that I just wanted to highlight, make sure you're aware of. One is we're continuing our higher education partnerships, which is, with that, we identify and implement strategies to enhance higher education partnerships and embedded college opportunities. All 5 districts are involved with this, with Mounds View and Spring Lake Park being the 2 primary partners on that. We're working really closely on making sure we are credentialing teachers, but then also looking at possibilities of sharing teachers across the 2 districts even in the future for some of those courses. Closely related to this partnership is the technical programs, career and college pathways. And this is identifying opportunities to provide expanded technical opportunities across schools. And as you may remember, this year we've implemented for the first time where last year, for this year, we implemented where we offered Iredale and Mounds View offered a couple of our courses in their registration manuals for their students. We offered courses at Irondale in construction and solar technology for our students. And we have about an equal number of students going to either Irondale or coming from Irondale and Mounds View to Spring Lake Park. So it's been a great kickoff to that. So Mounds View and Spring Lake Park are the 2 partners really working on that one together. Roseville's also interested in that, and they're going to be working with us on that this year. The third one is called Diversifying the Workforce, and that's where we're looking at options to partner and continue progress with diversifying our workforce, as well as making sure we're able to fill those hard-to-fill positions, that we're finding quality candidates for those. Ryan leads that one. All 5 districts are involved with that one, and again, Mounds View and Spring Lake Park are the 2 primary leads working on that. And then AVID, and that's just looking at how we can further leverage AVID practices across our districts, and all but Mounds View are in that one. Mounds View does not have AVID, so they're not involved with that one. Okay. And then the last thing I just want to mention, of course, we have our levy renewal, no tax increase, renewal of our levy for learning and our capital projects levy. Community members and parents will begin seeing more information about that later this month. Our website is live and available for people to see online. Kids First is already working with this, and we'll share more information with you at the work session here in a couple weeks. So just wanted to mention that. Other than that, it's just been a great start to be.
Awesome.
Quick question, any update on progress of facilities, any leftover projects that how are things looking from facility projects that we were doing?
Do you have anything? I mean, generally they've.
Yeah, there's nothing new, though we have ready for the football game this weekend.
Yeah, things will be ready to go in the stadium for this weekend, and we had a great we had some soccer games, was that last week? It all went really well over at the stadium, and the buildings are all going really well. We're still finishing up. I don't think the practice field is completed quite yet, so that's being completed yet, out the front of the school by Highway 65. So. I will say this, though, I'm glad you asked that question, because I forgot to mention, I was up last week at the National Sports Center, where we've put in the 2 fields of turf up there, and when you get out on those fields, it is absolutely huge. I could not believe, I think our soccer players and coaches are gonna love that space, as well as the cross in the spring, and whoever else may use that. The scoreboard will be going up with Spring Lake Park on it. We also have our Spring Lake Park logo at the center of each field, which is great news. But that is gonna be great. It's gonna give kids a consistent practice place, and being able to get done with practices earlier in the evening. So really excited about that, how that's gonna turn out, now that they're gonna be wrapping that up. So, yeah.
All thank you. Okay, we're moving on to action items. Number 1, appointing election judges for the school district general election to be held on November 5th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Wheaton,
Second.
second by Mr. Amundson. Whereas Spring Lake Park Independent School District 16 will be conducting a general election on November 5th, 2019, and whereas pursuant to Minnesota statutes 204B.21, election judges for precincts in a school district election must be appointed by the board of that school district, and whereas persons selected to serve meet all requirements of Minnesota statute and county administrative policy and have been trained and certified pursuant to law, now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Spring Lake Park Independent School District Number 16, State of Minnesota as follows. The individuals listed in attachment G1 are hereby appointed to serve as election judges for the school district general election to be held on November 5th, 2019. In the event circumstances require judges to be appointed in addition to the persons named in this resolution, the clerk of election is authorized to appoint as necessary, provided that the persons appointed meet all the requirements of Minnesota statute and administrative policy. Is there any discussion? Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Edmondson?
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton?
Yes.
Mr. Easter, yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Ms. Hennon?
Yes.
Motion is adopted.
All right, thank you. Number 2, establishing a location for absentee voting and an absentee ballot board for the school district general election to be held on November 5th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Forsberg,
Second.
second by Mr. Easter. Whereas Spring Lake Park's Independent School District 16 will be conducting a general election on November 5th, 2019, and whereas pursuant to Minnesota statute section 203B.05 for school district elections not held on the same day as a statewide election, applications for absentee ballots shall be filed with the school district. And whereas pursuant to Minnesota statute section 203B.121, the governing body of a school district must authorize an absentee ballot board by ordinance or resolution to process returned regular absentee ballots. Now therefore be it resolved by the School Board of Spring Lake Park Independent School District Number 16, State of Minnesota as follows. 1, the School District Office, Spring Lake Park Schools, 1415 81st Avenue Northeast, Spring Lake Park, Minnesota, 55432, is hereby established as a location for absentee voting with respect to the school district general election to be held on November 5th, 2019. Number 2, an absentee ballot board is hereby established to process, accept, and reject absentee ballots cast at the school district office for the November 5th, 2019 general election pursuant to Minnesota statute section 203B.121. And number 3, membership of and appointment to the absentee ballot board shall be based upon requirements contained in Minnesota statutes chapter 203B, and a sufficient number of qualified individuals shall be appointed to serve as absentee ballot board members for the November 5th, 2019 general election. Any discussion?
Who decides who goes on that board? It just says who the requirements are. Who makes the decision?
Karen?
Karen? And just for the folks that are watching, this is in-person absentee ballots, which is commonly known as early voting, essentially.
Good clarification, yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, because we have not done this before, right? This is new for us, so.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing the training and being our professional, Karen. Excellent. Any other comments or questions? All right, clerk, could you please call the roll? Kirk.
My role's changed. Ms. Forsberg?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Edmondson?
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton?
Yes.
Mr. Easter, yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Hennon?
Yes.
Motion is adopted.
All right, moving on to number 3, final resolution. Acknowledgement of gifts. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Forsberg, seconded by Mr. Strobel to adopt the following resolution. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts to the district, and whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states that a school board may accept a gift of real or personal property by the adoption of a resolution approved by two-thirds of its members, therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Spring Lake Park Schools accepts with appreciation the gifts as shown on the screen. Any discussion? These are fantastic.
Yeah,
It's wonderful. Comments, questions, anybody? All right, clerk, you're up.
Thank you. Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Ms. Forsberg?
Yes.
Mr. Edmondson?
Yes.
Mr. Easter, yes. Ms. Wheaton?
Yes.
Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Ms. Hennan?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Thank you. Okay, board forum. We don't have students tonight, or maybe we'll have students next month? Excellent, wonderful. We'll welcome them next month. Anybody else have anything to share?
I was at North Point last night for their first PTO meeting of the year. Judy Cohn gave a great overview. She had asked teachers to share by grade level what they did on during the first week of school. And there's just a lot of being a good citizen and character building, and but she shared a lot of thoughts from the teachers. So that was the highlight.
Yeah. Anybody else? Mr. Stroh, I know you
Well,
have one.
I do, and I'll ask for help on this because I know there was other people there too. This was last Friday. The AMSD meeting had our annual rundown from the Morris Leatherman survey of, sort of going into the fall. There's a number of school districts going out for referenda, and they're trying to gauge where the state is at and a number of issues, education being one. Education is still being highly rated as one of the top issues by most of the respondents. I didn't really have any specific big takeaways, and I also don't have a link to give you that points to the results. I'm trying to get a hold of that, but did you either of you have anything that sort of jumped out at you that you heard?
Not anything terribly different
No, it
than in
wasn't.
previous years.
It wasn't earth-shaking or anything from what I heard, so I don't think there's anything really big that came out of
It was my first time seeing that presentation, and I was pleasantly surprised that education was so high on the
Yeah,
list of
yeah.
when they call an average Minnesotan and ask them, what are your primary concerns at education? Is number one, wasn't it?
Yep,
Yeah,
it's number one.
which is fantastic. It's wonderful.
So, anyway, I think, that's kind of the biggest nugget out of that, but there's a lot of detail in that. I'm trying to see if we can get a link to that report.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Marilyn?
At the 9/16 meeting, there was a representative of their foundation and encouraged board members to join that, the 9/16 board members, but also each school district, and I believe that we have done that for a number of years. They finally have found a finance director, which has been an ongoing problem over a period of time, having some people who just didn't work out, then we had a group, and that group was sold, and so hopefully this is going to work. Nominations were available for delegate assembly, and they were self-nominations, which I did, and apparently there has not been an overwhelming number because there is not an election this year. So it seems like whoever applied is a part of that.
In fact, aren't they still seeking one, I wanna say, Marilyn? Or did they fill that last seat?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought I saw something, maybe they were still seeking one if anyone's interested.
So, advocacy tour used to be called their fall district meetings, is September 21st. I was at the Lighthouse PTO this afternoon, which is why I happen to have my name badge on, and they are off to a good start. They like the new playground. They've purchased a classroom set of ukuleles, which will be used by grades 1 through 6. And planning some activities. One suggestion involved an egg toss, which I did not encourage on the new turf. But otherwise, it was a good meeting, and it was short, and all seems to be going well over there.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just looking on my phone. The AMSD annual conference is coming up. That is
Oh,
one
yeah.
thing that's coming up, and I was trying to find the date on my calendar, but couldn't, but we'll get that information out.
I think it's in November.
I think it is too, and I thought I had put it on my calendar, but I don't see it on there, so we'll get that out and get that information to everybody. All right, anybody else? All right. All right, we'll be moving into closed session to discuss employee negotiations, and when we come